We are going to start a new series today, and I will be here today and next Sunday, and then it will have a break when the Thompsons are here, and we have Stephen Hogwood, who many of you have heard, just a very anointed speaker. The following week I'll be here when Stephen's here, but I didn't want to be focusing on preparing sermons while I was with my parents. I wanted to focus on them. So we'll have two guest speakers, and then we'll pick this back up again because it's a big topic. It's a topic that's in the news. It's a topic that really, if it hasn't hit your mind lately, will very soon. So we're going to talk about today, in the beginning, God. And we're going to start off with Genesis chapter 1. And it's a bit of a long passage. I tried to think of a way to chop this up, and we're just going to read it together and think about, really, because it's a complete thought. It's a passage that probably was passed down to people in an oral tradition before it was ever written down. Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day. And God said, "Let there be an expanse in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters." And God made the expanse and separated the waters that were under the expanse from the waters that were above the expanse. And it was so. And God called the expanse heaven. And there was evening, and there was morning, the second day. And God said, "Let the waters under the heavens be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. God called the dry land earth, and the waters that were gathered together he called seas. And God saw that it was good. And God said, "Let the earth sprout vegetation, plants yielding seed, and fruit trees bearing fruit, in which is their seed, each according to its kind on the earth." And it was so. The earth brought forth vegetation, plants yielding seed according to their own kinds, and trees bearing fruit, in which is their seed, each according to its own kind. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the third day. And God said, "Let there be lights in the expanse of the heavens to separate the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years, and let them be lights in the expanse of the heavens to give light upon the earth." And it was so. And God made the two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night, and the stars. And God set them in the expanse of the heavens to give light on the earth, to rule over the day and over the night, and to separate the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good, and there was evening, and there was morning, the fourth day. And God said, "Let the waters swarm with swarms of living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the expanse of the heavens." So God created the great sea creatures and every living creature that moves, with which the waters swarm, according to their kinds, and every winged bird according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. And God blessed them, saying, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters in the seas, and let birds multiply on the earth." And there was evening, and there was morning, the fifth day. And God said, "Let the earth bring forth living creatures according to their kinds, livestock and creeping things, and beasts of the earth according to their kinds." And it was so. And God made the beasts of the earth according to their kinds, and the livestock according to their kinds, and everything that creeps on the ground according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him, male and female he created them. And God blessed them, and God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over every living thing that moves on the earth." And God said, "Behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the face of all the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit. You shall have them for food, and to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the heavens, and to everything that creeps on the earth, everything that has breath of life, I have given every green plant for food." And it was so. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. And on the seventh day God finished his work that he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work that he had done. So God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it God rested from all his work that he had done in creation. When we hear in the news that Texas is insisting that children in school, not just children, teenagers, people in high school, middle school, public school, when we hear that they say that they will not just teach evolution, but that they want children to be exposed to the idea that there's a creator, it creates an uproar. People are upset. I work with lots of doctors and nurses, people who consider themselves scientific, people consider themselves to be objective and not to be carried away by some emotional appeal. And they consider what I just read to you a mythology, something that ancient people who were too uninformed to understand really how could it be that there are galaxies billions of miles away from us, farther than we could think or fathom. How could that be? And they see what I just read to you as something too simple for them to be bothered with today. And the world that we're moving into is one where a young person who has a bright mind and would like to be a scientist or a researcher or even a physician and goes to church has to say, I either can take what science says and reject what I was taught as a child, or I can pretend that I believe this and not admit to my teachers or my boss or my person I'm writing a grant to try to get to fund my research, not admit that I believe any of this, there's a creator stuff. Or, you know, if we could build strong children in our church who really did what we say we do, put God first, and started with this, realizing this is not a science book, but this is what God said. It's what we have. If they could start with this and say, so let's start with this and say, God says this is true. How can I somehow take what I see, what's shown to me, what other people see, like when they look into the intricacy of a tiny cell and realize it's like a factory, it's detailed. There are all kinds of, it's more complex than most of the things that we see with our eyes. When you look at something like the circulatory system in a body, think trees. When I'm out walking on the path, the trees lifting up their branches and getting tinier and tinier and tinier, that's in you. That same pattern is your circulatory system. When we look at that and realize how much detail there is, it's hard if you came to it with this as your basis, that God, in the beginning, God created. I believe that it would create a possibility for us to really have dialogue and understand. But as it turns out, because we as a church, maybe not this one, I don't know, I didn't grow up here, but where I did grow up, we as a church spent more time putting down the evils of evolution than we did at building up in our children the sense of, in the beginning, God created. And God is not saying in Genesis chapter 1, first I did A, then I did B, then I did C. He's not saying that. This is written for people to understand that God was before. He's outside of time, before time, and that what we see, what we experience here on earth was created by him. When we look at the problems with that, it immediately becomes embarrassing to children. Say, well, actually, I believe the Bible. And usually that kind of is all they know that they believe. They've had little Sunday school lessons where on day 1 and day 2 and day 7 and they have a sense of it, but they really cannot give any sort of convincing argument about why they believe that. And so they easily go to college, and I experienced that. I went from a small high school, Stockbridge, very small. There were 113 kids in my class. It was little. And I went to the University of Michigan. I was 18 years old, and it was devastatingly hard. I'll just tell you, it was beyond what I could think or imagine. And I trusted God. I did not backslide or lose my faith, but it was a huge struggle the whole time. It never got easy. Never got easy. And I'm sure you guys have experienced some things. I'm sure Jenny and the Marines that you experience, like, it's hard, And I did not do a good job at sharing my faith. I did, when I wrote papers and things, get some really bad grades because of things that I said I believed. And I had actually some professors who kind of tried to take me under their wing and help me along. I thought, that poor girl from that backward hillbilly town, she doesn't stand a chance, or just like that. But when they would see that I wasn't really backing down on that, they lost interest really quickly. So I think going forward, we're going to take quite a long time to look at what it is that science is saying about our world. There are many discoveries that are coming about right now that are just so amazing that the scientists who are discovering are saying things like, well, if I didn't know better, I'd say this actually is proof that there must be a creator. But I know that's not true, so I can't go there, so we're just going to have to keep searching and figure that out and see why that's not true. And really, it comes down to the idea when Paul wrote to Timothy, in one of his letters, he said that people are always learning, but never able to acknowledge the truth. That's 2 Timothy 3:7. They're always learning, and we celebrate that, the fact that we're always learning, and we're supposed to, as we age, just continue to, learn a new word, do crossword puzzles, do things, keep your mind sharp, always be learning. And there's nothing wrong with always learning, but it's a bad thing when we start it on a foundation, for what we're discussing, of something that is ungodly, that says, nope, no God. I still remember being a kid and seeing that Life magazine cover come out that said, God is dead. And I was in elementary school, I think about 6th grade. I could be wrong on the grade, but I remember seeing the cover thinking, no, he isn't. But trying to figure out it was beyond me to really understand what they were trying to say. And it was really almost like a prophecy. Because if you start thinking there is no God, if you base everything you do on there is no God, I know that's not true, that would be irrational, you cannot possibly get to the truth. Cannot possibly. But if we never start with, in the beginning, God, and teach that forward, that does not mean, as in the day of Galileo, when he was saying, actually, you guys, you have it wrong. The sun does not go around the earth. The earth goes around the sun. Well, that was heresy. People were pulling out things from the Old Testament, like miracles when there was a battle and Joshua was praying that the sun would stay up longer and it would be light so that they could finish the battle. They were pulling out things like that, saying that could never have happened if the sun wasn't going around the earth. Well, it couldn't have happened going around the earth either. But anyway, it went on for hundreds of years that they could not accept that. And the real Christians continued to believe that the sun traveled around the earth until it became just so obvious. I think there still are people today who believe that. They think all the telescopes and all the things are wrong. And God is not saying in this passage that you cannot believe what you see with your eyes. He's not saying that. He's saying, I'm trying to get you started on the right path. Right away in my word, I let you know, basic is God created the heavens and the earth. He's not saying that if you see something to the contrary. The psalm that I read you this morning says that to God, a day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is like a day. Now that's just a saying. That's not a mathematical formula. We don't calculate that out. It's a saying to show us that time does not have the same meaning for God that it has for us. And actually, scientists right now, not saying I think they have it right, because remember they started at the wrong point, believe that the Earth is like 3.8 billion years old. Billion! Like that's nothing I can even conceive. That's not a million, that's billion. And when we talk about space travel, same thing, it's billions of miles out into those other galaxies. So to say, I believe, just for the record, that it is a literal week. I honor and respect people who say, no, it's ages. It's the first age he created this, the second one he created that. I can see that is not going to keep someone out of heaven. Not believing in Jesus as your Savior, that he died and came to earth and rose again, that will keep you out of heaven. Getting your history incorrect and believing that it's ages instead of days is, one or the other of us is right and the other is wrong, and one day God will explain that, and that's not worth not having fellowship with someone. But it does have a problem in that there's evening and there's morning the first day. There's evening and there's morning the second day. And you could say, well, that's just sort of like the chorus to the song. It's like a song. It sounds poetic and good. But Jesus refers to that creation and doesn't correct that information. So I still believe literal week, 7 days, and And nothing that they could teach me. I took astronomy, I took, hard sciences, chemistry and physics and all those things at U of M. Nothing they could teach me rang true to me the way this does when I sit with it and read it. It's a spiritually discerned thing. Now, there are actually people, new atheists out, who are not content to just say, I disagree with you, Gene. I don't think there is God. I think you're just off. I think that's all mythology. New atheists feel that it's part of their job to put down and convince people who do not believe the way they do. And so they're quite radical. And if you have children, that's going to be something that they're going to be faced with in school. It's why people are so upset about this DeVos lady being the Secretary of Education, because she believes in a creator, and that's a problem. Think for a moment, if you are a convinced atheist, it lets you off the hook totally for whatever sin you want to commit. It lets you off. You are your own person, come about by chance. And you are master of your own destiny. You answer to no one. It causes government even to rub wrong against people. They just feel like, I am here and I'm going to do what I want. And to accept that there's a creator also says, and you are answerable to that creator that created you. And people don't want to do that. Just literally, even if they wanted to say, well, maybe there is some truth to that. Let's give it an equal chance, like what Texas is trying to do and has taken so much flack for. It's hard. I take that back. It's not hard. It is impossible to legislate God. People have tried it through the ages to say, it's the law here, you have to believe in God. That does not work. It doesn't create belief, it creates bitter resentment and pushback. So I just want us to kind of explore some things, to think about, so if we say, and some Christians are comfortable with this, if we say we believe in evolution, but it was God who started the process. Let's just say lots of people feel really comfortable with that. It allows them to be okay with the science people, be okay with the Christian people, and they try not to think about it too much. If you say that, we're going to explore what does that mean with the rest of Scripture that comes along. What does that actually mean? We're going to look at what does that mean for God creating humans in His own image. We're going to look at a little bit of language origination and see that creation hymns, like the one I just read to you, were a way for early people to express and remember in a time where things were not written down, and that there are many of them, not just the Christian one. There's lots of other versions. There are some things in those hymns that are similar, and there are things that are very different. There are people who say the one in our Bible was actually copied from older ones. And we're going to talk about some of those things. And I just ask you to kind of have an open mind, not in the sense of in any way denying your faith, but to think about when my son, when my daughter, when my grandson, when my neighbor, when the little boy or girl who comes here to church grows up and says, I want to be a scientist, how can we ensure that they understand the truth to build their profession, build their life, go forward? Because we cannot just hide our heads in the sand about this and believe one thing when we're at church and another thing when we're not.